Let me be blunt about this. People don't understand Hanekawa. I used to think Senjougahara was the most misunderstood character in Monogatari, but oh boy, the research I've done for this video was a real eye-opener. I mean, folks out there don't even know what stereotype she is. I mean, neither did I, but that's beside the point, because that's the kind of character she is. So is she the Genki girl, or the pure girl, or the One-san? Let's find out. Hello and welcome back, my filthy weebs. It's your friendly neighborhood degenerate, Kaishi. So what exactly is Hanekawa's stereotype? For starters, she is not a Genki girl. A Genki girl in anime stereotypes is the type of girl who has extra batteries shoved up her ass. The energetic girl. She runs everywhere, gets excited over every little thing, and wouldn't shut the fuck up. I know for sure that Hanekawa isn't the Genki girl, despite being pretty talkative, because in Monogatari verse, Kambaru Suruga already fulfills that role. Well, a subversion of that role, because we're talking about Nishio Ishin here, a man who's probably figured out a way to subvert the act of taking a crap in the morning. So what Hanekawa's character is, in terms of anime stereotypes, is that of a pure girl. The pure girl in Japanese culture is the ideal young woman. She is pure, as in chaste, well-mannered, polite, intelligent, and so on and so forth. In the realm of anime, pure girl is most of the time in love with the protagonist, and it's almost always unrequited. Some examples include Rem from Re:Zero, Raphtalia from Shield Hero, and Momoko from Ghost Stories.
Have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior?
Hanekawa fits this description to a T. That is until you start digging a little deeper. Another stereotype that fits Hanekawa's character well is that of an One-san. The reason being that she is a very dependable person because she knows her stuff. That and big boobs. But it's not strange considering that the pure girl and One-san stereotypes go hand in hand at times, like Momoko for example.
Do not lust in your heart. Jesus, you're right.
Now upon closer inspection, you will find that Hanekawa's character is different from other Monogatari characters in a very peculiar way. In addition to deconstruction and then reconstruction of her stereotype, which is something I've already talked about in my Senjougahara video and will also do in this video, Hanekawa has another layer to her character, and that is conflict. Her entire character is a walking negation of itself. She's supposed to be the pure girl, but she's too sexual to be one. She teases Araragi time and time again, agrees when he asks to touch her breasts, shows him her panties, and even gives him a pair. Now that's some paradoxical shit. She's also supposed to be the dependable One-san, but in reality, she's the one who's psychologically dependent on others. These conflicted characteristics of her stereotype are not mere coincidences. They are by design. They represent her conflicted emotional state. You see, Hanekawa suffers from identity crisis. She has no personality of her own. She has no preferences, no hobbies, not even a place she could call home. And in order to fit into the world, she started adapting the personality that people around her expect her to have. This is evident from when Araragi refuses to cope a feel of her bazongas in fear that she would lose her pure girl appeal. That's the reason why she's a different person at home than she is with someone like Araragi or Senjougahara. Completely opposite, in fact. She is a sad character. Just like this graph. Look at it. This is sad. And do you know why that is? Because you don't subscribe. So subscribe. Now continuously maintaining this facade and living up to everyone's expectations has its price. In this case, it's the subconscious repression of her own desires. Take this conversation between her and Senjougahara, where Senjo asks her a series of questions regarding the type of seasoning she prefers on her food, and Hanekawa confesses that she doesn't use any kind of seasoning. She says, "Isn't food good even without the flavor?" To which Senjougahara says, "There's the comment that seals the deal." And seals the deal, it does. You see, what Senjougahara understood from her comment wasn't the fact that Hanekawa enjoys bland food or that she has insensitive taste buds, but the subconscious repression of pleasure. This repression of pleasure, along with the continuous struggle to please others, creates a lot of bottled up emotions with no chance of catharsis whatsoever. This unfinished emotional business is what gives birth to her first oddity, Black Hanekawa. Now, some important things about Black Hanekawa. She's not Hanekawa. She's not her split personality, she's not her alter ego, she is an oddity, a separate entity. She herself says that she was there because of her master's pent-up stress, and she is a mechanism of catharsis for her. In case you haven't noticed, there's also the theme of conflict, or perhaps the right word to use here is opposites, staying true to the conflicted nature of Hanekawa's character. Unlike Hanekawa, Black Hanekawa is bold, true to herself, walks around in lingerie, hates Araragi, and not to mention she has silvery white hair as opposed to Hanekawa's black. She also has the ability to drain other people's energy, which could be in contrast to Hanekawa's nature to motivate others or give them energy, as she's seen doing with Araragi on more than one occasion. So that leads us to the question, what does Black Hanekawa represent in retrospect of Hanekawa's character? Simply put, she is the rebellious child. You see, Hanekawa is a teenager, and teenagers tend to be rebellious. It's just how their stupid little minds work. Black Hanekawa is her way of going through that phase, because she is incapable of doing so herself. The reason is that she doesn't even know how to rebel. Like I said before, the repression of her desires and wants is a matter of subconscious. She isn't even completely aware of it. That is why she needs Black Hanekawa. She needs her to grow up. And grow up she does. After the events of Nekokuro, she starts to acknowledge all that is wrong or unnatural in her life. Or more accurately, her friends help her acknowledge that. This leads to her dropping the pure girl act and becoming a blank state for a new start. She cuts her hair, changing her look from typical girl next door to generic bland anime girl ready to go through character customization. But most of all, she starts talking to her friends about her domestic problems, like when she tells Araragi about her abusive stepfather. Then comes the second most important part of her character arc. To say that she starts to change in Nekoshiro would be a gross understatement, and Senjougahara, of all people, is the one who acts as a catalyst of this change. The entire sequence of events that plays out during Hanekawa's stay at her house, from when she slaps her into coming to her home to the moment she leaves, are the cause of this change. However, one particular scene stands out to me. In this scene, Senjougahara compares Hanekawa with Araragi, saying that even though they both sacrifice themselves for others, they are very different. She says that if an ordinary person were to see a dead cat on the street, they would choose to ignore it. They wouldn't pick it up and bury it, because they fear that people might see them as a good person and may try to exploit them. But Hanekawa would bury the cat. Araragi would do the same, but would complain about it because he knows the risk of appearing as a good person in society. Hanekawa ignores that risk, not because she's a saint, but because she chooses to ignore the consequences of her actions. She doesn't take responsibility for herself. This is perhaps the first time Hanekawa is shown her goody two-shoes personality as something negative. Perhaps also the first time she acknowledges the real reason behind the appearance of her second oddity, the hysteria tiger Kako. And the reason for its appearance is Hanekawa's envy of other people's homes. Now the point to be noted here is that unlike Black Hanekawa, an oddity that was projected inward at her repressed emotions and acted as a means of catharsis, Kako is projected completely outward. In that sense, it's different from the metal cat. That and the fact that it's a huge ass tiger and not a busty high school cat girl in Victoria's Secret. Another very important thing happens near the end of Nekoshiro arc. After Araragi defeats Kako, Hanekawa confesses to Araragi and gets rejected. This confession serves as a closure as well as an outlet for unhealthy emotions. Yes, I would call her love for Araragi as unhealthy because I believe it came to be because of her daddy issues. The only man in her family was physically abusive to her, and since there was no other father or brother figure in her life, she projected that image onto the first male figure who was genuinely nice to her. But unfortunately, because of her unstable psychological state, she mistook those feelings to be of romantic nature. I believe her love for Araragi is completely platonic. Same with Araragi. He is not romantically or sexually interested in Hanekawa. When he tells Tsukihi that he might have feelings for Hanekawa, Tsukihi initially says that he's describing love. When Araragi says that he wants to touch Hanekawa's boobs, Tsukihi asks him to touch her boobs, and Araragi does it without any hesitation. Giga Chad. From this, Tsukihi concludes that Araragi doesn't actually love Hanekawa, but is in fact sexually frustrated. So at the end of the day, they both had unhealthy feelings towards each other. But with Hanekawa's confession, both of them complete their unfinished emotional business and are able to accept their true platonic feelings for each other. Sorry about that, Arakawa shippers, today is just not your day. But to be quite honest, I prefer it this way. It gives their relationship for the rest of the series a more pure aesthetic and Hanekawa more credibility as a character rather than just being a side chick. After purging all those unhealthy emotions, she truly grows out of that pure girl persona and starts to develop a personality of her own. The first step of which is thinking about herself. The very act of confessing to Araragi was that first step. She also asks her step-parents for a separate room of her own. That is when she truly feels like she's home for the first time in her life. Not because she has her own room, but because she faced her inner demons and grew as a person. She, in a sense, becomes the pure or ideal girl, and that is Nishio Ishin's reconstruction of the pure girl stereotype. The root cause of her distress, her inability to act in her self-interest, and the ignorance of the consequences of her actions are no more, and she is at peace with herself. Take a look at how her hair changes during this arc. After she has dealt with all kinds of emotional stuff, she gets black and white streaks, a far cry from the plain generic look she had. It makes her look very distinct apart from looking like a zebra, symbolizing her developing unique personality. These streaks are remnants of her oddities. But then she dyes her hair in order to hide the streaks, but she specifically mentions that they don't go away. It's her way of saying that her past experiences, whether good or bad, will always stay with her for the rest of her life, but she will not let them define who she is. She will find her own path and keep growing. And by the end of the anime, we do see her grow a lot. And that is the reason why Hanekawa is an amazing character. Do you guys agree? Do you think this is a good interpretation of her character, or do you think I'm talking out of my ass? Let me know down in the comment section if you want to see more Monogatari content. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, the bell button, you know the deal. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.